Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Always exciting to jump into these.
Today, we're going to be looking at the Toronto real estate scene.
Okay.
And to help us out with this, we're going to be looking at 20 articles that Manoj Atri, a local agent, curates for his newsletter.
Yeah, Manoj does such a good job of finding these really interesting articles.
He does.
Pulling together all sorts of different insights and perspectives.
Yeah, so anyone out there who's thinking about buying or selling in Toronto or even renting, these articles are going to be packed full of information for you.
Definitely a must-read for anyone who wants to stay ahead of the game.
Okay, so shall we jump right in?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so first up, big news that's actually making waves across Canada, not just Toronto.
Right.
And that's this revision to the country's GDP figures.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah, it's like discovering an entire extra year in economic activity that we didn't know about.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Statistics Canada, they found that there was 1.3% of underreported growth. Right.
Between 2021 and 2023. So it's kind of like everyone was working with the wrong numbers.
Exactly, like planning your finances based on an incomplete picture.
Yeah, so what does this mean then for like the Bank of Canada and interest rates and all that?
Well, it definitely throws a wrench in their plans.
Yeah.
They just made that big rate cut to try and combat deflation.
Right.
But now it looks like maybe that pressure wasn't as strong as they thought.
So like maybe they jumped the gun a bit.
Possibly, yeah.
And what about for people in Toronto specifically? What does this GDP revision mean for them?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that the economy is way more unpredictable than we thought. This revision just shows how much things can change and how quickly.
Right.
So for anyone thinking of buying or selling in Toronto, it means you got to stay flexible.
So do your homework and be prepared to adapt.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about rentals.
Okay.
Because we're hearing that things are cooling down a bit. That's right. Yeah, we're seeing a bit of a shift in the rental market.
Yeah, nationwide, the average rent actually dropped to $2,151 a month in October.
That's a 1.2% decrease from last year.
Wow, so that's significant.
It is, yeah, and it's particularly noticeable in places like Vancouver and Toronto.
Oh, interesting. So like the big cities are seeing the biggest drops.
Yeah, exactly. Like in Vancouver, for example, the average asking price for a one-bedroom apartment dropped by 9.1%.
Wow. And what about Toronto?
Toronto saw a pretty big drop to 8.7% for a one-bedroom.
Okay, so that's good news for renters, right?
It is, yeah, it gives them a bit more breathing room.
But what's driving this cool down?
Well, there are a few theories floating around.
Okay.
Some people are pointing to the recent changes in immigration policy. The government's scaling back on immigration targets.
Right.
And that could be having an impact on demand.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's also the fact that vacancy rates are going up in those big cities.
So more options for renters.
Yeah.
So if I'm a renter in Toronto, what should I do?
Well, it might be a good time to negotiate.
Yeah.
See if you can get a better deal on your rent or maybe even upgrade to a nicer place.
Okay, so keep an eye on the market and don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Exactly.
Now, what about investors, though? Is this a bad sign for them?
Well, it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
The rental market is not as hot as it used to be.
Right.
So those high returns that investors were used to might not be there anymore.
Okay, so proceed with caution.
Yeah. Do your research carefully and maybe diversify your investments.
Good advice. All right, let's move on to mortgages.
Okay.
Because there's some interesting talk about fixed-rate mortgages.
Yeah, especially with the Bank of Canada cutting rates.
Right, so you would think that fixed rates would go down too.
You would think so, yeah.
But apparently that might not be the case.
Well, at least not according to economist Don Drummond.
Okay, so who's Don Drummond?
He's a pretty influential guy. He's advised Canadian prime ministers on economic matters.
Oh, wow, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does. And he believes that those super low fixed rates we saw over the past decade, those were an anomaly.
Like a blip on the radar.
Exactly.
So those days are gone.
It seems so, yeah.
Okay, but why wouldn't fixed rates drop if the Bank of Canada is cutting rates?
Well, it's because fixed rate mortgages are actually tied to bond yields.
Oh, okay.
And bond yields haven't budged as much.
So they're not following the Bank of Canada.
Right, and Drummond actually predicts that bond yields might not drop significantly, which means fixed mortgage rates could stay high even if the Bank of Canada keeps cutting rates.
Wow, that's confusing.
It is, yeah. It's not as straightforward as it seems.
So what's the takeaway for someone who's thinking about buying a home?
Well, it means you really need to weigh your options carefully.
Yeah.
Consider both fixed and variable rates
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what makes the most sense for your situation.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
You need to do your homework and talk to a mortgage professional.
All right, let's move on to a topic that always seems to be in the news.
Okay.
Immigration,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically how it impacts the housing market.
Right, because the government just made a big decision to reduce immigration targets.
Yeah, they're lowering the target for 2025 from 500,000 to 395,000 permanent residents.
It's a significant drop.
It is, and it's causing a lot of debate.
Yeah, some people are worried that it will hurt the economy
Right.
because immigration has been a big driver of economic growth in Canada.
Yeah, but on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
some people are saying that this could actually help to cool down the housing market.
Yeah, that's the argument that people like Don Drummond are making.
Okay, so less demand for housing could mean lower prices.
Potentially, yeah.
But is it really that simple?
Well, it's not that straightforward
Yeah.
because even with these reduced immigration targets,
Mm-hmm.
the number of new immigrants is still higher than the number of new homes being built.
So the demand is still outpacing the supply. Okay, so it seems like we need to do more than just tinker with immigration numbers.
Yeah. We need to find ways to increase housing supply and address those other factors that are driving up prices.
Like speculation and all that.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's move on to a topic that might not be on everyone's radar.
Right.
10-year fixed-rate mortgages.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know they're not that common,
Yeah, they're definitely a niche product.
but they seem to be gaining some attention lately.
Well, especially with interest rates being so unpredictable.
Right.
Some people are looking for that long-term stability.
Yeah, like the idea of knowing exactly what your mortgage payments will be for the next decade.
Yeah, exactly. Peace of mind.
But what are the downsides?
Well, the main one is that the interest rates on 10-year fixed mortgages, they're usually a bit higher than the rates on shorter-term mortgages.
Okay, so you're paying a premium for that stability.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind is that if you need to break your mortgage early, you could face some pretty hefty penalties.
Ouch. Yeah, so it's a big commitment.
Okay. So it's not for everyone.
No, it really depends on your individual circumstances
All
and your risk tolerance.
right. Well, let's bring things back to Toronto
Okay.
and talk about some local developments.
Sounds good.
Manoj included an article about Mayor Olivia Chow and her proposal for something called as-of-right zoning.
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
It is. So what is it all about?
Well, basically it means streamlining the development process,
Okay.
so making it easier to build new housing,
Okay.
especially on major streets.
And how would that work?
Well, right now there are a lot of rules and regulations
Right.
that make it really time-consuming and expensive to build anything new.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So this as-of-right zoning
Mm-hmm.
would basically cut through all that red tape.
So developers could just start building?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
They'd still need to meet certain standards,
Okay.
but the process would be much faster and simpler.
So what's the goal here?
The goal is to increase housing supply. Okay.
Which is something that Toronto desperately needs.
Right, because we have a major shortage.
We do, and it's driving up prices.
Yeah.
So this zoning change could potentially make housing more affordable.
But are there any downsides?
Well, some people are worried about the impact on neighborhoods.
Okay.
You know, they're concerned that this will lead to a lot of cookie-cutter development
Right.
and that it will change the character of their communities.
Okay, so it's a trade-off.
Yeah, there are pros and cons to consider.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Definitely, it could have a big impact on the future of Toronto.
Okay, so that's it for this part of our deep dive.
All right.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from economic updates to rental trends to zoning changes, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's still a lot more to explore.
So stay tuned for the next part of our deep dive,
We'll be back soon.
where we'll delve into even more fascinating insights from Manoj Atri's curated articles.
It's going to be good.
It is.
So grab a coffee.
Yeah, and we'll see you back here soon.
See ya.
And speaking of, those tricky situations that sometimes come up with real estate and housing,
Yeah.
Manoj included this article about an Ottawa man
Okay.
who's facing this uphill battle
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to charge his electric vehicle at his apartment building.
Oh, wow. Yeah, with EVs becoming more and more popular, I bet this is something that a lot of renters are going to be dealing with.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
I mean, this guy, he's been charging his EV at his building for years.
Oh, okay.
And he even offered to pay extra,
Hmm.
to cover the electricity costs.
Right.
Because it's included in his rent.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden the landlord just like shut off the outlets
Oh, wow.
in the parking area and said no more charging.
But can they even do that?
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of a legal gray area.
Yeah.
There's no specific law in Ontario that addresses EV charging in rental units.
Right.
Especially when electricity is included in the rent. So what are renters with EVs supposed to do?
Well, I think the best thing is to be proactive.
Yeah.
Talk to potential landlords about EV charging before you even sign a lease.
Right.
Even if you don't have an EV yet.
Right.
Just to see what their policy is.
Yeah.
And if they're open to it, get everything in writing.
Right. Get it all spelled out.
Exactly that way. There are no surprises later on.
Okay. Good advice. Right. This next story is a bit of a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It comes from Winnipeg, and it involves some allegations of real estate fraud.
It's a reminder that not everyone out there is playing by the rules.
Yeah, unfortunately. And in this case, it seems like someone took advantage of a business owner
Right.
who was facing some financial difficulties and ended up losing 2 properties.
It's really sad.
So what happened exactly?
Well, according to the lawsuit, this individual, they approached the business owner offering to help.
Okay.
With their finances.
Right.
But then they basically used some manipulative agreements and tax sales to seize ownership of the properties.
So they were pretending to help, but they were actually just trying to steal the properties.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's terrible. And is this like a one-time thing or?
Well, that's the thing.
Okay.
This individual apparently has a history of this kind of behavior.
Oh, wow.
Targeting people who are in financial distress.
So they're like predators.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so what's the lesson here?
Be careful who you trust.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to your finances and your property.
Right. Always do your research.
Absolutely.
Get everything in writing. And if anything seems suspicious,
yeah,
don't hesitate to get legal advice.
Exactly. Better safe than sorry.
Okay, let's lighten things up a bit and talk about condo living.
All right.
Manoj included a story about a couple in Mississauga who were having a bit of a battle with their condo board.
Oh, condo board drama. Always a good time.
It is. So what's going on?
Well, it seems like the board decided to go on a rule-making spree. They increased the number of rules in the complex from 30 to 70.
Wow, 70 rules. That's a lot.
It is, yeah. And the residents are not happy about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They're saying that the new rules are way too restrictive.
Like what kind of rules are we talking about?
Well, everything from like you can't paint your fence to you can only have one pet to you can't have certain types of plants.
Wow. They're really micromanaging everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
But doesn't the condo board have the right to make rules?
They do.
Okay.
But the rules have to be reasonable.
Right.
And that's what the residents are disputing.
They're saying that these rules are not reasonable.
Exactly.
So what can they do about it?
Well, they can try to talk to the board.
Okay.
See if they can reach some kind of compromise.
Right.
But if that doesn't work, they can file a complaint with the Condominium Authority Tribunal.
Okay, so there is a process for dealing with these kinds of disputes.
There is, yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to many Canadians.
Okay.
The first home savings account, or FHSA.
Ah, yes, the FHSA, a great tool for first-time home buyers.
It is. So what are the key things that people need to know about it?
Well, first of all, it's a tax-advantaged savings account.
Okay.
So you can contribute up to $8,000 per year, up to a lifetime limit of $40,000.
Okay.
And all contributions and withdrawals are tax-free.
Wow, tax-free.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah, as long as the money is used to buy your first home.
Right, of course. So should I wait until I'm ready to buy to open an FHSA?
Actually, no, it's better to open it as soon as possible.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because the contribution room is created when you open the account,
Okay.
not when you make contributions.
Oh, I see. So even if I don't have any money to contribute right now,
Mm-hmm.
I should still open the account.
Yeah, to secure that contribution room.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. And what if I change my mind and decide not to buy a home?
Well, you can always transfer the funds from your FHSA into an RRSP or an RRAF.
Okay, so it's not like I'm locked in.
No, you have options.
All right, that's good to know. Now, what about people who are selling their homes?
Okay, good.
What should they do with the proceeds?
Well, one option that Manoj highlighted in his newsletter is a high-interest savings account.
Okay, HISA.
Yeah, it's a good place to park your money while you figure out your next move.
But are these really that much better than regular savings accounts?
They are, yeah. They offer much higher interest rates.
Okay, so my money will grow faster.
Exactly. And unlike GICs, you can access your funds at any time without penalties.
So it's a good balance between growth and liquidity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Menard also included some articles about the legal side of real estate.
Ah, yes. The fine print, always important.
It is, and it seems like there have been some cases where people have gotten into trouble for misrepresenting information about their properties.
Yeah, like the square footage or the property taxes.
Okay, so accuracy and transparency are key.
Absolutely. You don't want to end up in a legal battle.
No, definitely not. There was also a case where a realtor was held liable
Oh, wow.
for giving the wrong information about a property's location.
Yikes.
Yeah. So it's important for both realtors and their clients to do their due diligence.
Definitely double check everything and
Look,
don't be afraid to ask questions.
All right, let's talk about something that's changing the game in many industries.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence, or AI.
Ah, yes, AI. It's everywhere these days.
It is, and it's having a big impact on the real estate market, too.
Definitely we're seeing a shift from uninformed buyers and sellers to more educated and empowered consumers.
Because they have access to so much information now.
Exactly. They can do their research online. They can compare properties. They can get insights from AI-powered tools.
So it's not just about relying on a realtor anymore.
Right. It's about being an informed consumer.
Okay, so how does this shift impact the role of real estate agents?
Well, it means they need to adapt. They can't just rely on traditional marketing methods anymore.
Okay.
They need to embrace technology, provide valuable insights,
Yeah.
and really build relationships with their clients.
So it's about more than just buying and selling properties.
Exactly. It's about providing a service.
Okay, so AI can't replace human agents.
Not completely.
Okay.
AI can automate tasks, and it can provide data,
Yeah.
but it can't replace that human touch.
Right, that empathy and understanding.
Exactly.
So it's about finding the right balance.
Yeah, leveraging technology, but also maintaining that human connection.
I like that. All right, let's move on to a story that's making waves in Quebec.
Okay.
And that's the release of a new flood map.
Oh, yes, this is a big one.
It is. So what's the story here?
Well, the Quebec government has released this updated flood map that uses all this advanced data and modeling techniques to identify areas that are at risk of flooding.
And this is causing some concern in the real estate market.
Definitely, because properties that were once considered safe might now be classified as high risk.
So climate change is having a real impact on real estate.
It is, yeah. It's something that we need to take seriously.
Definitely. So what does this mean for buyers and sellers?
Well, it means that transparency is more important than ever.
Yeah.
Sellers need to be upfront about any potential flood risks, and buyers need to do their research, check the flood map, talk to their insurance company, and make sure they understand the risks involved. Okay, good advice. All right. This next story is a bit of a heartbreaker.
Okay.
It's about a couple in Toronto who are fighting to save their home from foreclosure.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So how did this happen?
Well, it seems like they fell behind on their mortgage payments.
Okay.
And they were approached by this businessman who offered to help.
Okay.
He said he would take over their mortgage
Right.
and let them stay in their home.
Okay. But there's a catch, right?
There is, yeah.
What is it?
Well, according to the lawsuit, this businessman was basically running a scam.
Well,
He used all these manipulative tactics
Okay.
and legal loopholes to gain control of their property.
so he was pretending to help them.
Yeah, but he was actually just trying to steal their home.
That's awful.
Yeah.
So what can we learn from this story?
Well, I think it's a reminder to be very careful
Yeah.
when you're in a vulnerable situation.
Right.
Don't just trust anyone who offers to help. Read the fine print.
Yeah.
Get independent legal advice.
Right.
And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay. Good advice. All right. Let's switch gears and talk about the condo market.
Right.
After years of skyrocketing prices, are we finally seeing a cool down?
Well, there are definitely signs of it.
Okay.
Sales of new and pre-construction condos in the GTA have plummeted.
Okay.
And that trend is likely to continue as interest rates climb
Right.
and affordability becomes more of an issue.
So is this good news or bad news for people who are thinking about buying a condo?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, the cooling market means less competition
Right.
and potentially lower prices.
Okay.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
rising interest rates make it harder to qualify for a mortgage.
Right. So it's all about timing.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let's talk about an option that might appeal to people who are looking for stability.
Okay.
10-year fixed-rate mortgages.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier.
We did, but Minogue included an article that goes into more detail.
Okay.
So I thought it'd be worth revisiting.
Yeah, for sure.
So why are 10-year fixed rates gaining attention now?
Well, because interest rates are so unpredictable.
Right.
A lot of people are looking for that long-term security.
Yeah, like knowing exactly what their mortgage payments will be for the next decade.
Exactly.
What are the downsides?
Well, the main one is that the interest rates on 10-year fixed mortgages are typically higher than the rates on shorter-term mortgages.
Okay, so you're paying a premium for that stability.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind is that if you need to break your mortgage early, you could face some pretty hefty penalties.
Right, so it's a big commitment.
It is.
Okay, so it's not a decision to take lightly.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
You need to weigh the pros and cons carefully.
And talk to a mortgage professional.
Absolutely. They can help you figure out what's right for you.
Okay, let's end this part of our deep dive with a story about resilience and the power of homeownership.
Sounds good.
Minogue included an article about a woman in Winnipeg who went through a really tough time as a renter.
Oh, no. What happened?
Well, she had to deal with a lot of landlord neglect, ongoing maintenance issues.
That's awful.
And then to make matters worse, she was injured in a car accident.
Oh, no.
And that made it even harder for her to deal with her living situation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But thankfully, her story has a happy ending. She was eventually able to buy her own home.
That's great.
And now she has that peace of mind and stability that comes with homeownership.
It's amazing how much of a difference owning your own place can make.
It really is. You know, it's more than just a financial investment.
Yeah.
It's about security control and just having a place where you can truly feel at home.
It's a basic human need.
It is. And it's a reminder, too, that, you know, the government's recent decision to cut back on immigration targets is really stirring up a lot of conversation.
It is, yeah. It's a big decision with, you know, a lot of potential impacts.
Yeah. And we're seeing both, like, you know, support and concern from different corners.
Exactly. I mean, some economists are warning that, you know, reducing immigration could actually slow down economic growth.
Yeah, because it's been such a key factor in Canada's economy for so long.
Exactly. And then, you know, on the other side, you have people like Don Drummond, who argue that slowing down immigration might actually help to cool down that red-hot housing market.
Right. Yeah, making it easier for both newcomers and people who already live here to find a place they can afford.
Exactly. So it's this real balancing act.
It is, weighing the economic benefits against the pressures on the housing market.
Right. And Drummond makes this interesting point that even with those reduced immigration targets, the number of newcomers is still going to be higher than the growth in housing supply.
Oh, wow. So we're still going to see that demand outstripping supply.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Okay, so this isn't just a simple fix.
No, it's going to take a much broader approach.
Right. We need to be increasing housing supply and tackling all those other factors that are pushing prices up.
Exactly. It's a complex problem.
It is. Okay, well, let's loop back to a topic we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Those 10-year fixed-rate mortgages.
Right. Those long-term commitments.
Yeah, Minogue included an article that really dives deep into this option.
Interesting.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, they've always been kind of a niche product here in Canada.
Right. Not a lot of people go for them.
Yeah. But with interest rates being all over the place lately, they're definitely starting to gain some traction.
Yeah, because people are looking for that predictability.
Exactly. They want that peace of mind knowing that their payments won't suddenly jump up.
Yeah, locking in that rate for a whole decade.
It can be pretty tempting.
It can.
Yeah.
But of course, there are those trade-offs.
Right, like a higher interest rate.
Yeah, you're paying a premium for that stability.
And those hefty penalties if you need to break the mortgage early.
Right, so it's a big decision.
It is, yeah, not one to be made lightly.
And Minogue actually shared some real stories from people who chose 10-year fixed rates.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a mixed bag.
As you'd expect, I guess.
Yeah, some people are really happy with their decision.
Right, especially those who locked in those low rates before things started going crazy.
Yeah, but others have run into some challenges.
Like what?
Like needing to sell their home sooner than they planned.
Oh, right. And then getting hit with those big penalties.
Yeah, ouch.
So it really highlights the importance of thinking it through carefully.
Yeah, and working with a mortgage professional.
Definitely, they can help you assess your situation.
Right, and guide you towards the best option.
Exactly.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Toronto real estate.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From economic trends to rental market dynamics, mortgage strategies.
Right.
the impact of technology and government policies.
Yeah, and those fascinating personal stories, too.
Definitely. Manoj's curated collection of articles has given us a lot to think about.
It has. It's a great snapshot of what's happening in the market right now.
And we hope that, whether you're a seasoned investor, a first-time home buyer, a renter, or just someone who's interested in the Toronto real estate scene,
Yeah.
that you've gained some valuable knowledge today.
Absolutely. And some fresh perspectives, too.
Definitely. And remember, staying informed is key.
Couldn't agree more.
So keep learning, keep asking questions, and, don't be afraid to reach out to the experts for guidance.
Yeah, find those people you trust.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.